Amendment of the United States Constitution, a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
There's a national event that takes place once a year, the first weekend in August. The people bear arms in fellowship and reaffirm their Second Amendment rights. Come join us and celebrate with us as Americans. The Watchmen of America, Second Amendment celebration event. Go to www.watchmenofamerica.com for details.
You can't handle the truth!
The Denise Simon Experience. The Truth Matrix. Vetting, exposing, drilling down to the truth.
Rolling Thunder, this is Hitman, Seat, over. Hitman, this is Rolling Thunder, Seat, out.
The Denise Simon Experience. Exposing politics, lies, demagoguery, spin, fraud.
Grid to suppress, Mike Charlie, 4-3-5, 9-2-1. Grid to mark, Mike Charlie, 4-7-3, 8-9, out.
Promoting individual situational awareness. Question, probe, notice, ask why.
Mark smoke on the deck, 2 rounds AGPT, gas TOT 5-3.
And now, the Denise Simon Experience.
Hello out there, America, and welcome to the Denise Simon Experience. I am your host, Denise Simon. All right, ladies and gentlemen, beyond the Iraq matter, in the IRS search and seizure, search and destroy agenda, the southern border has kind of fallen off the headlines. And that is likely because the Secretary of Homeland Security, Jay Johnson, testified before Congress this week stating, well, he heard about the incursion through the media. But tonight we're bringing the insurgency back into the headlines where it belongs. I've invited the border intelligence expert, Mike Presnell of BorderNarcotics.com, to be with us tonight, and he graciously accepted. So, welcome, sir, and thanks for sharing your time with us tonight. You've been a stalwart.
Thank you.
You have actually been a stalwart watchman on these issues at the southern border for a very, very long time. I've been watching you. This is an incursion going on there. I don't know how else to put it. So I got to thank you for your good work, and please tell us, up front, what are the real numbers here that we're hearing 60,000 have come across this border in recent weeks? Is that a good number, or do you think it's something else?
That's pretty close. We pegged it up around 73,000 actually in the last few weeks.
And
in the United States, there's actually around 45 to 50 million illegal aliens in the country now. It's not what's been reported earlier.
Yeah. I didn't think it was really that high. I was putting it around 30 million. And we're told
33 million. The news media put it at 33 million right before Obama's first election. Then it changed to 11 million, and nobody caught that. Yeah, it's more like 50 million now. So,
was there not some kind of a little bit of self-deportation going on for a little while? But it wasn't significant enough to really alter those numbers?
No, there's people that come and go back and forth from Mexico and other places all the time, but that was put out by the Obama administration to make it look like there wasn't a problem anymore. That's really all that happened. It's never changed.
What agency is really chartered with knowing what that number is?
ICE is, Immigration Customs Enforcement.
And they're not about to reveal it, eh?
Well, they released numbers, but the books have been cooked on the southwest border for several years now. I mean, and nobody, even Border Patrol agents, don't even look at them. They just shake their head. You know,
So
they know the books are cooked.
Mm-hmm.
They've been caught many times.
You must be thrilled, along with border enforcement, that they've just recently increased the budget to $77 million to handle these unaccompanied children. However,
right
after this little Senate hearing with Jay Johnson this week, there was a voice vote to actually earmark $47 billion and then an additional $2 billion to handle all the healthcare problems.
Well, those numbers that you're citing are actually DHS's new budget. That was on their budget, and it had a lot of things into it. Not just the items you just mentioned, but there are a lot of things in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what are these huge dollars that this infusion? What are they going to go for, as you see it?
For the infusion of people that's coming in now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's going to go to relocate them. They're placing them with illegal alien families that are already here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This whole thing was planned. It was planned with Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, all of them. It was all planned, and Obama was at the helm. And it's his basic, finger in the face of the American people of I'm going to do what I want. Congress won't pass immigration reform. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think Congress knows how to pass it without giving them all amnesty. We all know what happened back in '84 when we got amnesty. Not one thing that was in that bill was ever done. And it's the same old thing. It's so Obama they got this fixed up, and this is what we've got. The detention centers are overfull. They don't know what to do with them. They're sending them to military bases around the country to stay in places. A lot of them are coming with a phone number attached for someone to call. And the coyotes out of Mexico are making a fortune because you don't cross the Mexican border without coyotes. That doesn't happen. The cartels are in the people business along with the drug business.
Well, I have looked pretty deeply, as my audience knows. I look for the actual documents. I want to see where the edicts are, where the presidential memorandums are, what DHS says, what FEMA says, what ICE says, what Border Patrol says. So I look for the actual documents, and it's excuse me, what I've come across is just absolutely staggering. Yeah, you're right. I mean, we flew 7 planes of them into Massachusetts. A couple of planes went into Oregon. One state turned around and said, "You're not landing them here."
That might have been Oklahoma.
Well, no, they actually went into Fort Sill.
Okay.
And that's what's interesting, because now you have a Department of Defense component that has had to give up space for these people.
Sure.
So let me ask you this question. What cities, are the cities going broke handling this? I mean, this has got to be far out of some of their budgets, like in El Paso, for instance.
Well, it's not the cities per se, unless their resources are being brought into it, but the states are surely costing them a lot of money. Arizona alone is spending several million on this, and our governor, who everybody thinks is the most stellar thing on the border, is not. She's all talk. We learned that a couple of years ago that Jan Brewer talks a lot, but she does nothing. And right now we've got 4 or 5 running for governor who all say the same thing that Jan Brewer said, and the same thing Governor Napolitano said when she ran for governor. And it's, bring out the National Guard to secure the border, which any governor can do. But no governor here has done it. And, they're all going to do it because it's a hot button issue. So they get elected. And it's just the same thing. It doesn't matter who's in there. They're not going to do it.
Well, what about the state legislatures then? Are the state legislatures up in arms or what?
Yeah, for the most part, some are, sure, because it's going to cost their people money. And like I said, here in Arizona, it's a hot-button issue. I wouldn't vote for it because right now we got elections coming up here in November, and our primaries in August, and I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole if I wanted to keep my job. People here are sick of it. They're just sick to death of it, just like everybody else is in the rest of the border states. We're being run roughshod over by Obama, and he's done it ever since his first day in office. It's not going to end anytime soon, and that's just the way it is.
Well, I happen to be in Florida, and so I don't have the same kind of incursion. This state doesn't have the same kind of incursion that the southern border does, but nonetheless, we are on the very short list, I think number 2 in human trafficking of the states. But
right. Mm-hmm.
So, Mike, tell me, what are the real conditions that the Border Patrol are dealing with down there?
The Border Patrol, their conditions are terrible. They're being told not to even bother arresting these people now. Mm-hmm. You come across the southern border, you pretty much got a free ride unless you're a drug smuggler. Those are still grabbing, but groups of illegals, no, they're not. In fact, they're told to give them assistance, and Border Patrol agents by the hundreds are disgusted by it, very disgusted by it. The detention center in Nogales looks like Woodstock back in the 60s. It's terrible. It's just full of people, and it's creating certain health conditions. Mm-hmm. And these people, mind you, come across our border. They come across with several diseases as well. TB is back on the rise.
Well, and that's kind of where I wanted to go, because I've actually heard that tuberculosis is back out there, scabies, some types of flus and influenzas that we've eradicated here completely.
Yep,
and
exactly.
that truly is a national security concern.
It is.
That I believe that people in Congress recognize that, but they're terrified to talk about it.
Congress doesn't know of anything unless enough people scream at them. Mm-hmm. They seem to be clueless until it hits the news several dozen times, and people get on letter writing and email campaigns and get on them about it. They seem to be clueless about a lot of issues until it actually has been out for a while. Mm-hmm. Then they seem to come around and think, oh, gee, I don't have much faith in Congress, and I know many of them. I don't have much faith in our Congress. They could have impeached Obama by now, and they've yet to do it. So what's the holdup? What's going on here?
Well, it ain't going to happen. But now let's go back to this health issue. You got TB, and what else?
Oh, there's a number of STDs coming across. There's some parasite diseases that they carry that they get from living with dirt floors. And I can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head. I studied it a couple of years back. Mm-hmm. And it's a parasite that they get, and it can be passed on. And it eventually kills you. There's just a number of things. Measles are back on the rise, and it's just ridiculous. TB is the biggest one.
Measles, that was another one. That's exactly right. Yeah. That was absolutely another one. What are the health professionals? I mean, are there enough down there? What's happening? Are these people being treated? They just being quarantined?
Yeah, they're in a detention facility. They're seen by medical personnel and brought up to date on their shots and stuff. Sure. What are they doing when they find people with TB and stuff? I have no idea what they're doing because they're not telling anybody. They're not telling. A lot of Border Patrol agents don't even know what's going on because they don't work in the detention facility, so therefore they're not told. So it's a sad state of affairs.
Now, Border Patrol, you said they're absolutely disgusted. I mean, are these guys just, they're working overtime? Are they protecting the border, or they just become administrators? What's really happening with them?
Well, Border Patrol basically has been told not to arrest any more illegal aliens, and they're basically, they've been processing these people. Most agents have been put on the processing line to process these people as they come in, and that's basically it. Obama's basically cut their enforcement legs off.
Mm-hmm.
And told them, don't do this, don't do that. Well, that's the executive branch, and they have to do that or they lose their job. ICE now is another thing. They have to deal with these people. They have to find out who they are, what their background is, and they have to cite them, which they do. They give them a court date to reappear, but I will almost tell you right now, 87% of them will never see a courtroom.
Yeah,
they won't reappear, and nothing will happen because they don't. It's just the system's overwhelmed now, and that's just how it's going to be. And
so we've got 73. So essentially, they've been given a little piece of paper. You got to show up in 15, 45 days, whatever the number is.
Something like that, yeah.
And they're not going to show up. So we've got somewhere between 73 and 75,000 people that have come into the United States that are invisible.
Yes, and most of them already have family here. And there's a lot of MS-13 gang members crossing over as well. And they're cutting them loose with a ticket.
Expand on the MS-13 component.
Well, MS-13 is a gang that comes out of Honduras, and they've been in this country for many, many years. They have several footholds. Very large, violent gang. In fact, one of the most violent gangs there is. Mm-hmm. And they're coming in lines with the rest of these people, and they're being looked at, and their information is taken down, their fingerprints, and they're given a citation report to court from ICE, and they're cut off on the street. They've already got people here. There's MS-13 gangs in every major city and some other, not so major cities around the country.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll go off. They'll never come into a courtroom because all the gang members they go to, they're all illegal already as well. It's a vicious circle.
Are these people carrying are they carrying any kind of documents with them, or are they just carrying a phone number? Or are they carrying anything?
Some of these kids, no. A lot of the kids don't. They don't have anything. They have a phone number on who to call when they get here, and those are usually illegal parents if they're already here illegally, or other family members.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And they will be. Go ahead.
Well, I'm hearing that some of them have actually had these pamphlets or these memos that they have gotten from their home countries, probably from our own embassies and State Departments and USAID and Honduras and Guatemala and El Salvador, whatever, and said this is what you're supposed to do. And some of them,
they are.
They are supposed to claim that they are here for asylum or they're a refugee.
Everybody has been coached way ahead of time. Yes, absolutely. Because our law says if you come in claiming wanting asylum, we have to take you in and explore your case. Mm-hmm. Our law does say that. And yes, they're being coached. There's no question about it.
Now, are they being coached in their home country or in the journey up to the border?
Most expect they're being coached once they get to Mexico. The ones from Guatemala and Honduras. And Mexican people, most of them, they already know how to play the game because groups like La Raza and that are pretty thick down there. Mm-hmm. They actually put out pamphlets down there on how to get on Social Security here, how to get on welfare, how to get housing, medical care, the whole 9 yards. They're pretty well schooled, have been for the last 6 years, I think, 7 years that I know of. That's been going on.
Now, you had mentioned MS-13. Are there any others outside? I mean, tell us a little bit. What about the drug cartels?
Oh, yeah, the cartels are here. And a lot of their people, they smuggle across. And their people, it's their people that's bringing a lot of these people over. Mm-hmm. They pay money, and they pay the cartels. You don't come across the border from Mexico into Texas or Arizona or California unless you pay a coyote. That goes for these kids as well. I talked to the head of the Tucson Border Patrol sector union, and we both agree. We know how this game's played. And sure, the cartels are making big money. What we don't know is how many of these kids that are coming in here are being taken off into sex trades and stuff like that. It's rampant all over the country. It's one vicious circle. And the government doesn't care. It's just all about getting the bodies in here.
Why, in your opinion, is the Department of Justice, the Department of Homeland Security, in the White House doing this, allowing this?
They're allowing this because their party, which is not the Democrat Party, the people need to understand the Democrat Party's been hijacked. It was hijacked after President Kennedy was killed, and Johnson was the new start of the progressives, the socialist progressives. If you look at all the movements up since Johnson, the welfare, first thing they did was to get the vote of the black community. They gave them welfare, Section 8, medical care, all this other stuff, and they started demonizing the Republican Party, which had done everything for the black community before that. They gave them the right to vote, they gave them the 14th Amendment, all this other stuff, and then they took a communist manifesto, and they started demonizing Republicans, making them racist against blacks, and that's never been the case. And the unfortunate thing of it is the majority of the black community bought it. They bought this. And all the Republicans are wanting to do is get a job and be a citizen. The Democrats captured them by giving them everything, and that's why they have that vote. Now it's common knowledge that they're doing the same with the Mexican people. They're going to try and get them down here and get them all around, and then come voting time, they've got another majority. The Democrat Party is trying to overthrow the United States government. I've said it for years, and so have many other in federal law enforcement have said it. We see it coming. This is what they're doing, and they're using our money to do it. John F. Kennedy wouldn't stand for this. He wouldn't stand for this for a second.
Well, I agree with that, and I was never really a big fan back then of him either. But nonetheless, I would take 10 of him right now.
I would too.
Now, we hear about Texas, and we hear about California, and we hear about Arizona, but not many people mention New Mexico. Why is that?
Because not as much comes across New Mexico. That section between El Paso and Arizona is that's pretty barren, and it's easier to cross them near like El Paso, down further south of McAllen and Laredo sector, and then you've got Tucson sector on the Arizona side, where they cross into. Some do cross in New Mexico. We just don't hear about it.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, you just never hear about it. It's just kind of like it doesn't exist in this whole equation.
Pretty much, but it's there, and it is happening there, just not at the numbers that it's happening everywhere else.
Sure.
California, if you remember, a few months back, there were a bunch that rushed the border down there at Tijuana. There were, I think, over 80 of them, and Border Patrol went on guard then to keep them from crossing. That was a prelude of what just took place. That was a test run. So they decided, instead of being met by force with Border Patrol, they would just walk over and surrender. Easy enough, huh?
Easy enough.
Yep.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got Mike Presnell of BorderNarcotics.com, and you have done stellar work here. Now, let me ask you, Mike, what about the state, the governor using National Guard to augment some of this? Is that possible?
Sure. Any governor has the right to secure their state's border, and they can do it with the National Guard. The thing is that they don't do it because it'll be costly, and federal government isn't going to pay for it because what's going on is exactly what they want. So they're not going to give up money. Governor Brewer has talked a good game here in Arizona, but she so far has done virtually nothing. She wasted money on SB 1070, which was a horrible law. It basically put everything back in the federal government's court, and it did nothing. I mean, the state was actually, there's no punishment. Had they written a law saying that if you're in the United States illegally, therefore you're in Arizona illegally, and your punishment is this, there was none of that. They'll be saying, well, it was the worst law I've ever seen written. It was first grade kindergarten. It was ridiculous. And all it did was create a big brouhaha with the feds and cost us several $1 million to defend a law that was virtually worthless. It had no teeth. You know, it put everything, it turned Border Patrol into a taxi service. So every police officer that grabbed an illegal off the street for whatever reason would go to the county jail, and then Border Patrol would pick them up and transport them to the federal detention facility. That wasn't going to happen. It wasn't going to happen. In fact, they even said when the law was implemented, the head of Border Patrol said, we're not going to do it. And it would have taken the Border Patrol, they would have all been transporting people, you know, instead of down where they belong, on the border. And it was a horrible law, and Jan Brewer defended it forever, but it had no teeth. It was useless. So, you know, you want to get a law that's going to actually, with some teeth in it, put some punishment in it. You know, you're going to get 6 months in jail or a year or 2 years or whatever. There was nothing like that in it. Nothing. It was horrible. And she's done nothing. Governor Perry in Texas, he's got DPS. He's deployed his DPS down there to the border.
Mm-hmm.
And they have shut off certain parts of the border in Texas. But again, it's manpower. Just don't have it. And not much to do.
We were about to touch on immigration reform.
Right.
Up until about, I don't know, a week or so ago, I wasn't a proponent of immigration reform law. And I was kind of saying that stupidly, because I really felt whatever happens to be on the books is just not enforced, and I would imagine that whatever laws we have on the books is probably adequate. However, I ended up reading a fascinating piece of law a couple of nights ago. It's H.R. 3355 that was done in the mid-'80s, and I read it's been amended 7 times, and I read not the whole 300 or 400 pages, but I read a good bit of it. And after I read that, because it actually came to my attention by a former CIA chief of station for another matter, but I ended up reading it, and I said, now I understand. Now I understand that we do need immigration reform, because there are so many, I don't really want to say loopholes, but there's so much wiggle room in the way laws are written that, you know, one faction of the law kind of negates the next faction of the law, and the people that have discretion over enforcement is mind-boggling. And so
exactly.
Then I decided 2 days ago, after I skimmed the 400 and some odd pages, that I think we do need immigration reform. Because as you said, there's really never a consequence, and there's no punishment, and you have too many people that, especially like a Department of Justice or anybody that runs any of these agencies like Jay Johnson, could look and go, psh, this is easy to get by. We can just negate this portion of the law because we've got, you know, this chasm of wiggle room here.
Yeah, prosecutorial discretion. That's why Eric Holder doesn't prosecute things that are beneficial to him or Obama, because he uses prosecutorial discretion. Title 8 clearly says coming across the border the first time illegally is a misdemeanor. The second time it becomes a 2-year felony. Mandatory. Sentencing, 2 years in prison. But they're not enforcing it. Well,
the other fascinating thing is that he runs, you know, his budget is responsible for the prisons, and so he's got to grant money for every fanny that's sitting in a prison cell, and he doesn't want to do that because it costs money. So that's why we're letting people out, to let people in, to let people out.
Well, they're not even enforcing the drug laws. If the rule right now is 500 pounds of marijuana or more, they prosecute. Well, they're not following their own rule, because there's many of them caught with 500 pounds of marijuana, and they kick them back across the border. Only to come, I've seen guys that have been nabbed for smuggling 2 and 3 times that were just kicked back loose. They take their drugs, they take their money, and they cut them back across the border. No big deal. So the expression that this is a lawless administration is pretty correct. They're lawless. They don't care, and they don't care what you think, I think, or anybody else in the American tax-paying system thinks. They don't care. They just don't care.
Well, there is this whole thing, it's separate but equal, meaning that whatever federal law there is supposed to, the state law is supposed to mirror that, but, the state law stands on its own. And I'm not seeing any of that because the feds, are...
SB 1070 mirrored federal law, too, and look at the guff we got off of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's whatever they decide they want it to be. It's scary. It is downright scary. We are living in a lawless, we have a lawless administration running our country.
Well, I'm absolutely with you on that. You would think, I read every once in a while that, somebody is killed by somebody in the drug cartel. We had the rancher that was killed, and, then we've got, it kind of spreads even out that we've got an illegal that, kills a nun in a hit and run accident and, all these other kinds of things. Yeah. So sure. You've really got where this has become a true life and death situation. And right. You would think that when innocent Americans are losing life over this, that would really sound some alarms. And that doesn't seem to do it either.
No. It doesn't, because it doesn't directly affect them personally. Therefore, nobody cares. They don't care. Look what went on with Benghazi. Look what went on with the IRS scandal. That was all that stuff. They knew about it. Sure. Fast and Furious, which was planned by the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the lies. It's phenomenal. And it's Obama. He heard about it in the news. You have an attorney general, the highest law enforcement official in the country, sitting there saying he didn't know about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right through his teeth. I don't, 30 years ago, the American people would have tore Washington apart a brick at a time by now. What's going on with our society?
That's a fascinating point that I don't think it really gets parroted enough, that we have just become indifferent and apathetic to all of this, because for sure 20 years ago, especially 30 years ago, 40 years ago, we wouldn't have stood for this. And
not at all.
And even lawmakers wouldn't have stood for it.
I totally agree. And there's a lot of lawmakers that are there today.
That were there back then.
Well, sure. Absolutely. And they're all just sitting there. It's all about money and power. Republicans and Democrats don't give one hoot in hell about the American people. It's all about their power, keeping their job, and doing as they please. Then you have a few in there, like Ted Cruz and a few others, who are actually trying to make a difference, and look what their own party does to them.
And
Republicans are not too far removed from the Democrats these days. They're not. And a lot of the old school Republicans, they know how to play the game. It's all about money. It's all about money. They've lost their way. The Republican Party has not been conservative in years, since probably before Reagan.
What about our poor Marine down there, Andrew Tamorossi?
Well, that's a good question. There's things that can be done. That Obama can make a couple phone calls, I'm sure, and whatnot. But at the same token, he did go into Mexico with guns in his vehicle. So it's a catch-22, and I don't know that we're getting the entire story. He made a wrong turn. Yes, it's very possible that he did.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, he went into Mexico with guns in his vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
Mm-hmm.
And I got a feeling this administration is leaving him be and letting Mexico handle it, so that they continue to send us people over that we want extradited to the U.S. What the guy did was and it's happened a lot before. People have gone in. I know a lady that went in with a 9mm in her purse, Didn't realize it was there, and all that. And she got caught. And it took a lot of money to get her out. But, they cut people loose down there all the time. All the time. Look at the kid from San Diego who at 12 years old murdered people for the cartels. Killed people. They just let him out here, last fall? And he'd only been here a year. We're killing people. So I think they could probably cut this Marine loose and chalk it up as, the Marine could chalk it up as a bad experience, which it is for him. But at the same time, Mexico's another nation, and there isn't a whole lot the American people can do besides go down and get him, and I don't see anybody stepping up to go do that.
Well, I will tell you, there have been some Congress people that have gone down there. He has been seen by the diplomatic staff several times.
That's true. But the bottom line is he's still there.
He's still there. That's precisely right.
But I think Obama could do something. Look at the billions of dollars we give Mexico. Look at it's staggering. Obama could make a phone call and get that guy cut loose before dark.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And he's actually required to do that. When the mother put that petition up there on the White House website where you have to have over 100,000 signatures, and then he has to respond, they're up to 136,000 signatures, and he hasn't responded. And the people in the press have sat in that White House press briefing every day and asked Jay Carney and now this new jerk, Josh Earnest, what's the deal with Andrew Temeresi? And they go, I don't have anything for you on that. Don't have anything for you on that.
Of course I don't, because nobody's working on it.
Nobody is. Nobody. And
nope, he's lost. It's that simple.
Sadly so, I think that this Marine is very symbolic of the indifference that this government has to doing the right thing. He really shows that. And here's the other fascinating thing: we got this idiot Bo Bergdahl, all right, the one that deserted and hung out with the Akani for the last 4 years. Well, he's been released. He's in outpatient. And they are saying that, he's in great shape. He gets his $200,000 plus in back salary.
Yep.
And they don't even look like they're going to go down the path that he really deserted.
Nope, they're not. That's exactly true. They're not going to do a thing. They're not going to do a thing. And that's a shame, because I honestly believe he did desert.
I absolutely do, too.
And I think he ought to be brought up on charges of treason. If anybody should, he should.
Precisely. What frustrates you most?
Our country is taking a terrible turn. Back to the Marine. Look at the other bad thing about that is the guy was a Marine.
Correct.
Obama has no respect for our military.
No.
None whatsoever.
He's actually he was actually to muster about a week and a half ago, called to duty. Right. And they had to give him a deferment on it.
Right. Exactly. Obama does not care about our military. And I can tell you one thing assuredly, they don't care about him either. They totally disrespect him. As they should. That's precisely right. You earn respect. You get respect in return for respect. He gives them none, they owe him none. That's just the way it is. That's a sad state of affairs.
We are speaking with Mike Presnell of BorderNarcotics.com. Now, what do you do all day, Mike, that frustrates you the most? What makes you what sets your hair on fire? Or do you have any?
all the lawlessness that goes on in this administration. Our borders are a sieve for drugs. Meth, black tar heroin, marijuana, cocaine, you name it. It comes across our southern border. Every day, Border Patrol and CBP confiscate hundreds and thousands of pounds of narcotics. That's at the ports of entry. They don't get everything that comes across the deserts that's backpacked in. They don't get all that. They don't get it. That's what our organization's about. It's the drug smuggling.
Mm-hmm.
but we're forced to look at the other stuff as the illegal alien issue. And we've since taken a hard look at everything lawless that the administration does, because all of it affects us. We're citizens too, and it was several months back, a Democrat constitutional lawyer told a House Oversight Committee that his lawlessness, that the only recourse the American people had was to overthrow the government.
Jonathan Turley.
That's a legal recourse according to the Constitution. The constitutional lawyer said this to a Congressional House Oversight Committee.
I watched
YouTube. You can see it.
I watched the hearing live. I watched it. There were three lawyers there. That was Jonathan Turley, and he was there with two others that I have their names in my notes. You ought to see my notes around here. But so the narcotics component is really very much lost now. I mean, we don't even really talk about the whole narcotics piece because
nobody talks about it because it doesn't. They think it doesn't affect them personally, but it does. It does. It affects them. Every time a meth addict overdoses, a heroin addict overdoses and goes and gets medical care, that costs everybody. Mm-hmm. Every time somebody gets robbed, killed, beaten up, whatever, from a junkie or whatever, it's just it snowballs. People need to sit down and think what this does to our society. We're never going to eradicate drugs, but I'll tell you what, the federal government could put one huge damper on it if they wanted to.
Well, I mean, we did have a war on drugs, and at one point, and it just kind of faded away.
Yep. You see how that worked out, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Now, tell me about Hezbollah. Does Hezbollah come across your desk and in your radar often?
Absolutely. Hezbollah and Hamas both. They've crossed our southern border. I talked to FBI agents who say they're here, but they don't know where they're at.
Swell.
That's scary. That's very scary. Our border is wide open. There is nothing secure about any of the southwest border or the Texas border whatsoever. Nothing. Nothing.
Now,
we have no clue who comes across that border.
Well, the fascinating thing is the 9/11 Commission report.
Right.
It said in there, and everybody signed on to it. Oh, yes, we are going to put in all of these recommendations. I mean, that's 1,200-page book report. Right. And said, we have to secure this border, any border. We have to secure our ports. We have to secure cargo. We have blah, blah. And all of a sudden, everybody's forgotten about the 9/11 Commission report. Now,
sure.
I understand the Hezbollah component, Mike, but tell me about the Hamas component.
Well, it's the same thing. They work hand in hand with the cartels in Mexico. They help train them. They help them, devise ways to bring their loads across. And they come into this country to join cells that are already here. I am awfully surprised nothing has happened in this country yet. And you can probably thank the FBI for a lot of that because they devote a lot of manpower towards terrorists. The thing is they're not getting any help from the administration, again, with the border. And there's probably a few crossing the border right now. And unfortunately, our FBI is not going to know where these people are, where they land, because once they land into it or get a ride, they get across the border and have a ride set up a couple miles inside our border, they're done. They're gone. They're gone. They're out playing golf and having dinner up in Phoenix before, nothing will happen. Mm-hmm. And then it's off to wherever they choose to go. It's frightening. Very frightening. They're here. There's lots of them here. And,
now, what about the OTMs?
OTMs other than Mexicans? Several thousands. Texas right now is being overburdened with a lot of that. That's, here, I can speak for Arizona. You have people from Yemen, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, India. A lot of Pakistan, India, and a lot of people from China are coming across our borders.
What are they doing here?
They're paying big money to get here.
For what reason?
Well, that's what we don't know. We don't know why they're coming here. Some say they're coming here to get away from their oppressed government or whatever. But, I'm not buying that from everybody. I just don't. The Chinese people, they probably are. But the people from Pakistan and India, it's pretty easy. It's much easier for some of them to come here legally with the money that they spend to be brought here. Some they pay the cartels several $1,000s to be brought across. Several thousand. And your guess is as good as mine of why they're going to come here. Pakistan, Yemen. Best I can assume is they're part of Hezbollah, Hamas, or whatever factions of terrorist organizations, and they're coming here to set up shop.
What about the other borders? I talked to a fellow that has kind of come into our circle here that is retired from the whole immigration. He did immigration investigations and chased all kinds of nasty people. But he made a pretty good point once that he said, we just don't have a southern and northern border problem. Really, all 50 states are border states when you consider that what the State Department is doing by giving entry visas for all kinds of crazy reasons. And those visas are not given by our State Department. They're actually given by all of the embassies around the globe, and those are even outsourced. So you really don't have a government employee that is going through the files. They're outsourcing that to people that really just don't care, and then they can fly in here. The Sarnoff brothers, for instance.
It's not as hard as people think it is to get a visa to come here. There's a guy in Tucson who I talked to. He was born and raised in Mexico. And I asked him, I says, how did you come here? He says, my mom went and applied for my sister and I to come here when we were kids and for her to come here, and we're here. He says, I've gone through everything and now I'm a citizen. Mm-hmm. He says, I don't care if I ever go see Mexico ever again. Mm-hmm. I said, well, how long did that take? He said, it took about 90 days. Mm-hmm. He said, there was no big thing. I said, well, why are these people coming across here illegally? He says, because they're lazy. He says, they're not going to file for any paperwork. He said, they just come on across.
Well, the fascinating thing is, I would think applying for a visa would be a whole lot cheaper and safer than paying the cartels as traffickers.
I totally agree with you.
So that's not computing.
I totally agree. Totally agree. But again, you've got this mentality that, this is the way they're going to do it. And, there used to be a time years ago when Mexicans came across here, they'd go shopping, they'd see relatives and stuff, and they'd go back home. Mm-hmm. And same with people in the U.S. Mm-hmm. A lot of people in the U.S. used to go shopping down in Mexico.
I did.
Not so much anymore.
I did. I lived in San Antonio, and I would go down to Brownsville, and we'd go to the Cadillac Bar and that whole thing years and years. Absolutely, weekends. Never thought anything of it.
Nope.
That was
now you go down, your chances of getting killed are pretty good.
Precisely.
Cartels run it.
What are the leaders in Central and South America, the El Salvador president and the Guatemala? What are they happy to get rid of these people? Or
absolutely, absolutely, they're in on bringing all these people here in this last fiasco in the last few weeks. They're all in on it. In fact, the Guatemalan president stood before the United States Chamber of Commerce and basically kicked our ass, telling us how bad we were for not wanting them here, that we're racist. And I hate to tell them, but Guatemalan, Mexican, Honduran, it's not a race. It's not a race. It's an ethnicity. And it's ridiculous. And when we had Calderon before our Congress a few years back and told us,
I remember.
everything that was wrong with us, and when he's one of the most corrupt people there was, and the cartels got him and Vicente Fox elected. It's just it's like the Democrats. You lie and I'll swear to it, and sure, they think we're bad because we don't want those people here, and it's not that we don't want them here. We want them to come here legally. That's the only issue. It has nothing to do with what country they come from or what color their skin is. It's doing it legally. Do not come across our border and break our laws and then come in here and get our benefits and all this other stuff and not expect us to be pissed off. That's just nuts. It's nuts.
Now,
there's no problem with anybody coming here if they do it legal. None.
Well, here's my thing, okay? I understand, America was once a great place to come to.
Sure.
But every day that goes by, we ain't so great anymore. And
it's not so great by our standards because we grew up in an era when we were great. Now we have the other people come here. The majority that come here now come here. They think we're great because they get a lot of free stuff.
Correct.
It's far better from where they came. But again, come here legally, and we'll help you. Go to work, be productive, be a part of society. And when the Gang of Eight legislation went through the Senate here a couple of years back, oh my God! Did you read any of that?
I did not.
There was not one thing for the American people. We were footing the bill for everything. That's why the Congress dumped it. And everybody who voted for that in the Senate needs to be taken out and thrown out of office. It's horrible.
Yeah. And Rubio was
leaving. Horrible. Rubio, exactly. I mean, if they reelect him, then God love him.
Yeah,
John McCain, I can tell you, John McCain won't get reelected here in Arizona.
I don't think he's running anymore.
And so is Jeff Flake, who, by the way, is on his first term as a senator from Arizona. Mm-hmm. He's done too. He's done. People in Arizona right now are fed up. They're fed up. They've had enough of these politicians and their BS. It's just it's out of hand. They want to look like they're doing for these poor people. Let me tell you something. Some of them aren't so poor. Some of them come across with a few $1,000 in their pocket. Some come across with a few pounds of dope to sell to keep them alive, until they get on their feet or whatever. It's ridiculous. They want to appease those people because there's illegals in this country who vote. That's the big thing. It's all about the vote, and it's killing our society. It is.
Well,
political correctness has gone too far.
I've had that discussion. They're all saying these are the Democrat future voters. I argue that point, and I say no. It is to immediately turn Texas and Arizona from red states to blue states. And that'll be immediate.
Yeah,
it'll be immediate. Well, if you don't like Jeff Flake, who has got to be a little bit better than McCain, is he not?
A little bit, but he's pretty much stuck it to us too. We don't believe he actually has a clue as to what he's doing. That's the biggest problem with Flake. But you know what? People are to the point that you try to stick it to us once, we don't want you. It happens all too often.
So all the people that you have running for governor then in Arizona, you don't like any of them either?
No, it's all the same thing. I'll call out the National Guard. I'll do this. I'll do that. And we don't like it. You run on the border here, you got a pretty good chance of getting elected. But you know what? People who actually pay attention, they're not buying that garbage. Christine Jones had a up-and-coming campaign. Talked a good game. Seems like a smart woman. Then she's getting endorsements from corrupt sheriffs in Arizona. Paul Babu of Presnell County is as corrupt as the day is long, tries to come off, it runs on the Republican ticket, comes off as a conservative. He's not. He's in it for political power the same as most other politicians. Joe Arpaio, Joe's a reasonably honest man. I got to give Joe that much credit. Mm-hmm. Joe doesn't care about being reelected again. Joe's in his 80s, and Joe does his job. He does it well in Maricopa County. Now, Christine Jones loves the endorsement with Paul Babu, who's as corrupt as the day is long. We know. We've been close to him. We know. And I don't care if you have a D or an R in front of your name. If you're corrupt, you're corrupt. I don't care who you are. It has nothing to do with your party. It has to do with the moral character that you have, that you claim to have to the people. And he's empire building over there. He uses his deputies to go against his political enemies. He does all kinds of things, and we have no use for him. In fact, we look to see him in prison within a year. Babu, yes. Yeah, a lot of people. That's what a lot of people say. He talks a good game, but in all actuality, Babu knows nothing about the border other than what he gleans from the news and everything else. We used to give him intelligence briefings every day until he invited us into his office to investigate when the Office of Special Counsel was on him before the last election for doing political work on the county time, the county dime, on county property. And we discovered a whole slew of corruption, starting with that. So, I don't care. You're not an honest person. You don't need to be there. He's a political grandstand. He's got a big mouth and he's got a gift of gab. Period. He knows nothing about the border. I suggested to him before the election to go out with his special response teams out in the field in the desert. He wouldn't do it. He was a Chandler traffic cop for 5 years. He wrote tickets for 5 years. That's all he knows about law enforcement. And he did 20 years in the military. He touts that he secured the Yuma sector border. He didn't secure the border. He built a fence. That's all he did. Didn't secure nothing. And the Yuma sector is not 93% secure at all. They get through their fence down there. They take a cutting torch. They cut a hole in the size for a pickup to drive through, and they drive loads through, or they fly them over in ultralights. Yuma sector still isn't secure. He claims it is. It's not. It's the reality of things. Fox News grabs him up and stuff like that because he has a gift together. He knows nothing about the border. Nothing. He's a fraud.
Swell.
That's just that. That's the stark reality of it all.
I want the unvarnished truth, Mike. I mean, I absolutely do, and I think the listeners do too. We find that anything that we hear, is a lie. I mean, that's the first assumption now. What they're telling us, there's a nugget of truth that gets spun into a larger lie. And then for me personally, it ends up being a launch pad. Okay, I guess I got to go figure this one out and get the backstory. But I've never looked at him. They tell people
what they want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
He puts out an email every week wanting donations to his campaign fund. Every time his deputies actually do something, he help us keep up the fight. BS. Campaign donations do not help fight the border problem. And, Babu will sit there and go through reports and stuff on the border, and therefore it makes him an expert. Mm-hmm. He's never been down on the border. He's never worked in the field. He doesn't know anything. He takes what his hardworking deputies do and turns it into his own thing. There was an operation here a few years back called Operation Pipeline. He put the press release out that his department did this thing. It was BS. It was done by DEA. ATF was involved, Pima County Sheriff's Office, Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, Border Patrol, ICE, several agencies involved. He made it sound like to his people that he got the largest seizure in the state of Arizona history. And it wasn't even true. Border Patrol agents do not have any use for him, other than the fact that they do prosecute. The county does prosecute cases when the feds won't. Period.
Mike, who are the biggest? You always have a chain, and there's a weak link in the chain. Is the chain in this? I mean, I would think that Border Patrol was doing a pretty decent job, but here with this incursion that we've had in the last several weeks, they've been forced to become a weak link. Is ICE the weakest link, or is it the legal system is, I mean...
It's the administration. Okay. ICE and Border Patrol follow orders from the administration. Jay Johnson is in charge of Homeland Security. Mm-hmm. ICE and Border Patrol fall under that umbrella. Mm-hmm. They have to do what they're told. ICE is actually suing this administration in court for not letting them do their job.
This I know. Where is that lawsuit? Because this I know. But is that
I believe it's in Washington, D.C.
Okay. But is it stalled here? Is it stalled, or is it moving, or is... Well,
it's a typical, get in line and wait. They don't do any preferential treatment. It goes on the docket the same as yours would if you were suing the government. Mm-hmm. And when your time comes up for your court date, then you get it. The House Oversight Committee is found Eric Holder in contempt of Congress. Mm-hmm. That's in Tucson. That's in Tucson federal court. It's not been heard yet. There's been a hearing or two. Judge hasn't ruled on it because Obama used executive privilege in order to not turn documents over to Congress. 85,000 documents on Fast and Furious. Congress has 7,500 of them because Eric Holder won't turn over the rest. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And why do you think that is? Because it's the smoking gun. That's exactly what it is. It's going to show Eric Holder lied to Congress. I don't know a soul who doesn't believe he hasn't. It's going to show that Obama knew about the operation when he said he didn't. It's going to prove a lot. Janet Napolitano lied to Congress. Why isn't she going up on charges of perjury? It's just one big vicious circle, and our Congress is inept, and they're not doing nothing. Nothing. There is evidence that Janet Napolitano lied to 3 congressional committees, as well as Eric Holder. And nothing is going on. Richard Nixon, look what he did. Look what he did. By today's standards, that ain't nothing.
Yeah, that's the truth.
That ain't nothing.
And at least he said, "Okay, I'm caught. I quit." At least he did that. There you go.
The honorable thing to do. That was when men in government had a little bit of honor. When they got popped, they would have a little bit of honor and they would resign. This lawless jerk that we have, the people call president, I don't get it. I just don't get it. I don't get it. They laugh at us around the world. They laugh at our country. A country who has brought every other country up. No matter what, we've gone to countries and leveled them and bombed them in wars, and then we built them back.
Where is ATF in any of this stuff?
ATF is knee-deep in Fast and Furious. Knee-deep.
So do we still have other Fast and Furious operations going on down there?
Not to my knowledge. I think if they do another one, it won't get out. But
because we did one after that up in, where was it, Minnesota or someplace?
You're talking about their sting operations. Those storefront stings have been going on since the 80s that I know of. Okay. And they were usually ran appropriately and under the law. It's been recently that some of the storefront undercover sting operations have pulled some illegal things. Mm-hmm. And ATF management needs to get rid of those people. In fact, ATF management needs to be changed drastically. Drastically. Nothing ever happens in ATF. You mess up, you're promoted or whatever because you went by the rules with the good old boys club. And those who speak out, whistleblowers, you got John Dodson and Jay Dobbins, Vincent Stefalou are all whistleblowers, and their life's been made a living hell because they stepped up and said, "Look, this is wrong." So that's when you look at the VA scandal. That woman who reported it, her life is a living hell because of it. And she's a whistleblower. So that's what you get. That's what you get from your government.
Now, where's DEA?
DEA was involved in Fast and Furious on a minute scale. Mm-hmm. They were brought in different things. Some of their people were protected because they were working with them for a piece of the bigger drug pie. Most of your DEA agents are very dedicated to doing their job. Mm-hmm. That means working. Sometimes you have to work with cartels to get in, gather information and stuff like that. And they got a pretty rough job. You know, those guys put their lives on the line. If they get found out, they're dead. It's that simple. When you do undercover DEA work, you get found out, your chances of living or being killed are pretty slim.
Yeah, I'm pretty good friends with 2 former DEA guys, and the whole Guzman thing, you know, they're up in arms over that one because Eric Holder refuses to have him extradited.
That's exactly right. DEA entirely. And Eric Holder ought to be jumping up and down on top of his desk over that. But he doesn't care.
He doesn't care.
He's more worried about drug dealers not getting the maximum sentence in this country than he is actually enforcing the law. Mm-hmm. Again, it goes back to political correctness and the socialist progressive attitude. That's how it is. He's more concerned with somebody not getting the maximum drug sentence than he is somebody getting prosecuted and sent to prison. You know, and Guzman ought to be in a U.S. prison. You know, yeah, he committed a lot of crime in Mexico, but you know what? Mexico had him once and he escaped. You can buy your way out of any Mexican prison. Mexico is so corrupt. We don't even trust the Mexican authorities or the military. Their military incurs into our country on a regular basis to guard drug loads.
Yeah,
I've had Border Patrol agents tell me the same thing. They come across, they say they just sit there and they watch from a distance. They watch, and then when they leave, about 30 minutes later, here comes a drug load. So then they get the drug load because that's why they're coming across. They're escorts.
Okay, that is actually where I was gonna head. I mean, we find that they come here onto our side countless times a month, and so you're telling us that they are actually running, you know, an LPOP for the cartels, and then they go back. Is that right?
That's exactly right. That's the only reason they have to come across in here. And if you talk to any Border Patrol agent that actually works close to the border, they'll tell you. They'll tell you. If they have an encounter with them, it's by chance. Okay? But most know, the veteran agents know to sit back, watch an area. When the military comes across, and they don't come in very far, and that they sort of hang out for a bit, and then they go back, and the coast is clear. About 20, 30 minutes later, here comes a drug load. And that's how it's been. That's how it's been. You know, you get one Border Patrol is spread very thin on the border. People think we have all these Border Patrol agents and whatnot. We don't.
No.
We don't. Every agent rides alone. Every agent covers a vast majority of territory. They can't be everywhere at once. And it's all due to because of the administration. All of it. All of it. Every bit of it.
Are we still running drones for surveillance or helicopters for surveillance, or are we just
yeah, they do fly. They fly the border. Yeah, they do. It's not as regular as it used to be. The drones at this time are grounded due to the one that crashed off the California coast. Mm-hmm. So government's reaction is they all must be bad, so they ground them all until they go through them. That can take several months and give them a clean bill of health to go back up, and then they will. The drone flights out of Fort Huachuca are very, very few and far between these days. They just sit there. They just sit there because they don't care. The government does not care. This is what people need to understand right off the bat. They talk a good game, and they do it strictly to appease the people. Oh, well, the government gave a news release today that they've got X amount of agents done on the border. Well, the vast majority of those agents are pencil pushers and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. The guys actually boots on the ground who work their tails off day and night, put their lives on the line. You get one agent that stops 12, 13, 20 illegals by himself and holds them until backup comes, sometimes 45 minutes away.
President Nieto. President Nieto.
Yeah.
Is he worse than Calderon, and or is he just the same?
He's about as useless as he is. Yeah, he's about as useless. Yep, pretty much. He's just picking up where Calderon left off, and he's not doing that good of a job at it. So the thing they have in Mexico is the Mexican military is just as corrupt as the government is. And Mexican authorities are being paid by cartels. You don't know who to trust and who not to trust down there.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. We don't mess with any of them. Mexico puts out so many lies about it. When Guzman was arrested, we had to check on our own sources to make sure that it was true, because we don't believe them.
I hear you.
And we've got sources clean to Guatemala, Honduras, all down through there, Mexico, and we hear from them on a daily basis. And we know who to believe and who not to believe. And we know not to believe our own government. You know, they have no clue. I mean, look at Hillary Clinton with Benghazi. Good God, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal that your own government can lie to the people, and most of the majority of the people buy it.
Tell us, expand on your website, bordernarcotics.com.
Our main mission is drug. We run an intelligence organization that mainly surrounds the drug smuggling out of Mexico through the southwest border. That's what we concentrate on.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we concentrate on.
And then, of course, with that, you automatically get the human trafficking component and the tunnels and all the other kinds of things. And when you say we, do you have a staff, Mike, that you do this with, or?
There's 48 of us. There's 48 of us. Everybody's experienced in intelligence and law enforcement operations, and we go after it.
And
we do the best we can, but these days we feel like we're just spinning our wheels, pretty much.
Well, if you had one tool to help you kind of get to the next level of success or gain any kind of success, Mike, what would it be? 5,000
men, and we'd shut the border down in Arizona.
Well,
we had two teams out just last week that actually turned back over 30 illegal aliens who came across in, just saw them and turned around and went back.
Mm-hmm.
That helps. Yeah, we would shut this border down ourselves just by being there.
Is a real deterrent, because right now there's no deterrent, right?
There is no border patrol spread so thin, and now they're just telling them go on across and surrender to border patrol agent. That's what they're doing. They've been doing that for almost a year. Some have, and now just recently they're coming in droves.
And why was it just so recent? Because this thing that Obama did was actually done in 2012, and he extended it for 2, and then it was 2 years.
But it wasn't done on as large a scale. Now that they see people down there have gotten the idea through their own governments and other channels down there that this is the thing to do, and this is how they're doing it. You know, the other governments got their people together who had people here, illegally, mind you, and it was all coordinated by all the governments, every one of them, including Obama. He was at the head chair.
And through the State Department. And this was done in 2012, and so we need to be reminded this was Hillary's charter.
Yep. Hillary, I'm sure, knows all about it.
Well, she does. I mean, and she absolutely does, because I mean, I've seen her name on some of the documents that I go after. So and then she'll go put USAID workers in there, and into these embassies, and then I've come across so many State Department documents that and propaganda that they put into these embassies in El Salvador and Guatemala and Nicaragua.
Well, all the embassies are ran through the State Department. State Department runs all the embassies in every country. Always have.
Right.
And those are our intelligence outposts. And a lot of federal agents from different agencies are actually stationed out of those embassies. And it's just they coordinated it very well. very well. Now you and I and every other tax-paying American is going to pay for it. Trust me. Our country is broke. We have no money. We live on loans from China.
Mm-hmm. In Japan.
That is scary. That is just scary. All I want my government to do is secure my border and pay the country's bills. And it can give us a robust military. Our military has been so degraded. I'll be honest with you. I don't. We could not launch a war right now if we had to. We couldn't.
No, you need a commander-in-chief, and we don't have one of those.
You're right, and we haven't had one since 2009.
That's precisely right. How broken, when these people are leaving these countries, when they're leaving Guatemala and El Salvador, are these countries so worse off than, they're telling us that they're leaving because of the crime and the violence and the thises and the that's. Is it really, is it so bad down there that they had to just immediately leave like in the last 2 months and come up here?
No, it's not. There's parts of Guatemala and Honduras that are quite safe.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's just that there are people that decided one day they wanted to come here. They did so illegally. And now these are their relatives that are being sent to be with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what it is. Everybody comes with a phone number of a relative to call.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody comes with the same story that they're fleeing violence and political persecution and all this other asylum BS.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, that's everybody. So they've all been schooled. It's coached, schooled, whatever you want to call it. And Obama was in on it. He orchestrated it. And it's going to be, come 2016, it's going to be, look what the Democrat Party did for you. Exactly what it is. And if the Democrat Party succeeds in overthrowing our government, those people who help them are not going to like what they get from it. Look at Obamacare. Look how many people who voted Democrat have had Obamacare shoved down their throat, and now they look at it and think, oh, my God, what happened here? I don't have health insurance. I can't afford that. And they're sitting there thinking, what did I vote for? It takes somebody actually being affected by these actions to actually open their eyes. And that's a shame, because the vast majority of the American people do not sit and take a hard look at what these people that they vote into office are actually doing or have done. Because they go on TV and they talk a good game, boom, they support them. I like that. Wow, we're going to have health care. Guess what?
Well, I guess it's health care for all these illegals coming in, eh?
Sure, that's where Medicaid expansion came in. Yep, they're going to get the free health care on the taxpayer's dime. Those who actually work for a living and make money get nothing. Get nothing.
If I was
they get to pay for the Medicaid expansion. Sorry.
There you go. There you go. If I was to tell you that there are, in fact, some senators that are pushing back on Obama real hard on this whole thing, this insurgency that we have going on, would you tell me I was a liar?
No, there are some that do it. But the bottom line is Harry Reid's still the president of the Senate. And Harry Reid thinks the sun rises and sets on Obama because it's all about party. It's not about what's doing right. It's about the party. Mm-hmm. And there's even some Democrats that are pushing back hard. But Harry Reid isn't going to do it. And if Harry Reid doesn't want to do it, the Senate is impotent. Doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Say whatever you want. Harry Reid's not going to do a thing to deal with it.
Well, there are apparently a handful of them that are, in fact, pushing back real hard. I see that it came out, and Jeff Flake is one of them, by the way.
Yeah.
That have actually sent a letter, apparently today, it was just in the Washington Times, that said, you need to handle this, and these people are not going to get citizenship, and they are to be deported. Would you believe that?
I believe that they've said it. Do
Okay.
I believe it's going to happen? No.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay.
I know better.
Okay. That's fair
Every
enough.
senator can stand up. Every senator should stand up just like that. I agree with that. But the reality of it all, it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to happen. ICE is so overtaxed with cases. There's no way on God's green earth that they can find all these people again. Once they get out into our society, they're gone. They're gone.
Well, I'm looking at this thing here. It came out of the Washington Times late this afternoon, and they are demanding that Obama make clear that all of these people are not going to get special treatment, whatever that might mean.
Well, Obama even came out a couple days ago and said that they're not going to be able to stay. But since when do we believe anything he says?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, we've been hoodwinked so many times. You know, that I don't believe a word comes out of his mouth. If he was standing here in Arizona and said, "My, it's a hot day, the sun's shining," I'd really have to check. I really would. That's how much I do not believe that man. How many times do we got to be lied to before we question everything he says or does?
Well, I mean, I clearly don't deny that, but, you know, I like to use their words against them. You know what I'm saying? So if you've got Dianne Feinstein, apparently it is saying that we have got, let me see here, Flake, Feinstein, and 36 senators signed a letter saying Obama needs to personally make clear that those jumping the border will not get special treatment. The senators who covered the ideological and geographical spectrum demanded Obama tell the leaders of Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala that they have a duty to dispel rumors that their citizens can gain legalization if they get into the United States, and apparently Obama, you know, he sent Joe Biden down to wherever he just went and said, "Shame on you," and wagged his finger for a little while. But I do like to use their words against them, and I can't get my hands on the letter. I looked pretty hard just before we came on air to get it, but it was dated today, and we might want to see if we can't look at that tomorrow and use them, you know, use it as much of a weapon as we can. But what really disturbs me is, I guess all of that can be negated if somebody waves a magic wand and says, the only special treatment that we're going to give these people is we got to give them health care due to national security. But beyond that, we're going to give them asylum or refugee status. And that just blows off, you know, because all of us are thinking amnesty.
See, well, in effect, it is an amnesty.
Well, I agree.
Because they get asylum status and all that. That's pretty. They don't need to be a citizen to get a job here, or to rent an apartment, or buy a house, or get a driver's license, or nothing. They don't need to be a citizen.
And in California,
all they need is one little document that says that they're okay to be here. And it doesn't matter what the reason is. It matters not. It does not matter one bit. The vast majority of these people don't care about being a citizen of the United States anyway. They just want to be here.
I'm so glad you said that. I want you to repeat that statement.
That it doesn't matter what their paperwork says. They just want to be here. They don't care about being U.S. citizens. They don't care. There's a very small minority that want to actually be a citizen of the United States. Look how many Mexican flags are flown in this country. California, you know, for example, they fly Mexican flags there, and they've been caught flying up above the American flag. Mm-hmm. They don't care about our country. They're here to make money. They want to live here because it's the best place in the world to live. That's why. Period. They could care less about being a U.S. citizen. It's probably around 1% that actually care about becoming a citizen, because that's only because they know that this is their only second chance in life, coming from the crap hole that they came from. And
I'm of the notion. I'm of the notion that we take these people, assign $20,000 per head. Pay him $20,000. Here's a money order or a Visa preloaded card. with $20,000 on it. We put these people on a plane and send them back. And I will tell you,
all of the deportation flights continued rather well up until about the second year of Obama's presidency, and we have aircraft for that.
Correct. What I'm trying to say is, give them the $20,000 and make them go away. Get them out of here, and I guarantee you it will be cheaper. If you want to up it to $30,000 or $50,000.
And you know what? I'll guarantee you they'll be back. I guarantee you they'll be back.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. There's guys, Border Patrol caught one guy one time. They caught him 5 times in one night. They would give him the option of going into the detention facility or taken back to the border. They would take him back to the border. They caught him 5 times in one night. Same guy. You give them $20,000, they're going to go back. It's going to be gone. And, they're going to live large for a while. And they're going to be back.
I guess.
And that's an awful lot of money. Take 20,000 and times it by 30 million. How much money is that?
It's a lot of money, but you know what? When you start breaking down our infrastructure, it's a cheap down payment, don't you think?
Well, I do agree. But I do agree with that. You're exactly right. But at the same token, they're going to be back.
Mm-hmm.
I got $20,000. How much can I get next time?
Mm-hmm.
And until we get a decent law in this country that says you come back in this country, you're going to do 10 years in prison or whatever, and actually have the manpower to hunt these people down and hold them accountable for breaking the law. Janet Napolitano said crossing the border illegally is no worse than a traffic ticket. She's right. It's a misdemeanor. It's a misdemeanor. But when you cross the border a second time, Title 8 says it becomes a felony. Go to Mexico illegally and see what you get. It's a felony first time there, and you will go to prison.
Mm-hmm.
You will go to prison in Mexico. Absolutely.
Let's go back to talk about tunnels for a second, Mike.
Sure.
Who is funding these tunnels? Are these tunnels OTMs? Are they Hezbollah and Hamas? Or are they just drug cartels? Or are they all of the above?
Cartels. The Sinaloa cartel is the biggest tunneling outfit because they've taken over a lot of the mining industry in Mexico. They own the mining industry. Therefore, they get a lot of mining engineers, mining equipment to do these elaborate tunnels. That's the Sinaloa cartel has been doing it for years. Douglas, Arizona is the tunnel capital of the world. Then California, usually Otay Mesa.
And elaborate on them. I mean, we have got, I've seen the pictures where they're literally, you can drive trucks through them, and they're air conditioned, and they've got lights,
ventilation, and all kinds of things. Yep, that's all done by mining engineers. Do those tunnels because the cartel tells them to, because they own the mine that they came from, and they bring mining equipment to build the tunnel.
And nobody's paying any attention to that?
When they find them. Border Patrol has a special unit that looks for tunnels. But, you've got a vast border, and you can't find every tunnel coming through. You just can't.
Mm-hmm.
Border Patrol spread mighty thin.
And then when we find them, do we blow them? What do we do?
They usually fill them with concrete, fill them with cement. As a rule.
That's a lot of cement.
They had a school bus 3 years ago in Douglas was going down the street, and the rear wheels broke through the asphalt into a tunnel.
I didn't hear that one.
A school bus. That was about 3 years ago, maybe 4. Yep. And there's tunnels there that they haven't even found yet. And there's probably some being built as we speak. Same with Otay Mesa, California. Same thing. So, in the Rio Grande, they usually float it across the river there. It's like a giant game of hide and go seek on a very large scale.
And I would think that these drone surveillance would pick some of that up, but and they have clearly, I would imagine. But now,
drones have actually spotted people coming out of a building where the tunnel went to. Drones have spotted that, and later on upon investigation, They found a tunnel, and they bring drugs and people through there like crazy. And on the way back through, they take ammo, guns, whatever they can get their hands on here. Sure. You bet. So,
well, what is there anything good that's happening
right now?
I mean, I had to
when?
ask. Okay.
10 years ago? Yeah, 10 years ago, it was going pretty good. We still had a serious border problem then. No president has ever taken this border issue seriously. That includes George Bush.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It includes all of them.
Mm-hmm.
This problem started right around Nixon. And everybody thinks this stuff's going to take care of themselves. Oh, well, we'll hire some more DEA agents, or we'll hire a few more Border Patrol agents. And Border Patrol agents are so saddled with paperwork and BS, it's not even funny. And like I said, the vast majority of them are paper pushers. Management is well overstaffed in Border Patrol versus field agents. And, you know, boots on the ground, we'll take care of it. But we don't have them. We don't have them. Every president has pretty much ignored the border. They throw a little, you know, the 84 amnesty. You know, a lot of things were supposed to take place then. They never took place. They never took place because there's always an out. That was like the Gang of Eight legislation a couple of years back.
Mm-hmm.
There was a thing in there for Homeland Security Director to decide whether or not they wanted to actually secure it. There was an out. There's always a loophole. Always a loophole.
When the Gang of Eight was doing that legislation, did they even bother to go interview anybody?
No,
you know?
it was done by special interest groups. Farm Bureau was probably one of the biggest. They backed John McCain and Jeff Flake, and they wanted the cheap labor. So yeah, special interests and lawyers. Look who wrote Obamacare. Mm-hmm. Look who wrote that. Mm-hmm. What a mess. What mm-hmm. a mess. What a mess. And we actually trust them to handle immigration after what they did to our health care. They all get on a bandwagon at some point. And the Gang of Eight legislation was a huge bandwagon. Huge.
If you were going to if you had a short list, let's say the first 3 items that you would do to cure some of this nonsense, what would they be? I mean,
first rule of thumb would be to fire Congress and start off fresh with actual people who know what it's like to live under these conditions and to be affected by what has gone on in this country because of what they do, their legislation that screws people up. Congress needs to go, all of them. There's very few in Congress that need to stay. You get one who does one good thing, he'll mess you over in another. It's just a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle. And our border needs to be secured in the worst way. Our security is at risk. We have no national security policy in this country. We have not had for the last 7 years. Our national security is non-existent. When your southern borders and your northern borders are unsecure, you have no national security. None. Mm-hmm. You have none. We have none in this country. None. We have a president who kowtows to the terrorists in the Middle East. He kisses their ass at every move.
Well, then he let the 5 Taliban go, so...
There you go. Yeah, he swaps off 5 top Taliban commanders for some sergeant who actually deserted. You know, he probably missed his mommy and wanted to come home. So they say, okay, well, we'll use this guy here, and we'll swap him off and get some of ours. I know of no president in our history that would have ever done that. Ever. Not even Bush. And I wasn't a big fan of him. I had 2 boys in his war, in the Iraq war, that we had no business in. Afghanistan, he should have went in and leveled it and been gone in 6 months. Mm-hmm. But how many years later are we still there? Mm-hmm. That's worse than Vietnam. That was 10 years. Now look where we're at in Afghanistan. We should have went there, leveled it, and left. Period. I had 2 of my boys who spent several tours each in both theaters of war. BS. And when he stood before the American Business Association after Iraq started and said there's a lot of money to be made in this war, that man lost my support.
Mm-hmm.
His kids weren't over there fighting. Mine were. It's all about the money. It all goes back to the money. People in this country need to wake the hell up. It's just...
Well, all right. If you were going to tell them to wake up, then Mike Presnell, what would be the first couple of things that they need to do in order to wake up? I can explain things to people, and by the time I get through explaining it, I can't even believe the truth that's coming out of my own mouth, and I see people's eyes glaze over. But you are the expert. You have been down there. You do this day in and day out. So how do people wake up about what is going on at the southern border and the lack of security and the money?
They need to get off their ass, quit believing everything they read on the internet, and do some of their own research.
Mm-hmm.
We post things all the time on Facebook, social media, about what's going on. And we actually get people that comment on there and say, oh, this is bull, you've got an agenda, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we have an agenda. It's called securing our border. It's called getting the drugs and the poison off our streets. It's called getting our government off their ass to actually do something for the American people and quit kowtowing to foreigners and terrorists. That's what we want. People need to research some of this stuff instead of listening to the nightly news, which is half BS, and research. It's out there. We research every story we put up to make sure that it's got facts in it. There's articles that come out from other ones. We won't even post that garbage. We won't do it. I won't mention what sites they are, but there's so many conspiracy theory sites out there, it's just ridiculous. When the reality of it all is right there in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't believe everything you read on the internet. Just because it's there doesn't make it so.
Right.
And there's a vast majority of people who read something and think, oh, geez, wow. It makes your head want to explode. It does. It's called thinking for yourself.
You've got this fella, I think his name is J. Michael Lynch.
Yeah.
Who's
very
done
knowledgeable man.
Okay. He's done a couple
Never met him, but I have followed him.
Mm-hmm.
And I've checked into some of his things, and he's accurate.
Okay.
He's right on the money.
You would think, he's done a documentary. I don't know, it'd be hard-pressed to tell you what the name of it is off the top of my head. But anyway, you would have thought that documentary would have actually sounded some alarms. And I haven't seen it sound any alarm. I haven't even seen him testify before Congress. And that to me is very, it's tragic.
Well, you might want to take a look at NBC, CBS, and ABC and CNN. They don't air none of that stuff.
I can't.
None of
my TV doesn't go over to those channels.
No, I don't even pay attention to them. I don't even watch TV. I'll be honest with you. I don't. But that's where the masses in the inner cities, back east, Midwest, East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they get the news.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the problem. Our media is missing in action. In fact, I will go this far and say the media is complicit. They're complicit. They're owned by the Obama administration. Owned.
Yes.
They're owned. And it's disgusting. Our media used to be one of this country's first lines of defense for information, actual, accurate information. Not anymore. Not anymore. It's ridiculous.
Would doing more documentaries help?
The documentaries do help if you can get them out to the people. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
You get these people on social media, they get in certain areas, okay? And they stay with those areas, okay? They'll get on Nancy Pelosi's like page, and they believe everything this dingbat says, and they just revel in that stuff. They come over to our page and see what goes on, the reality of things, and they think, oh, no, you guys got an agenda. You don't like Mexican people. You're racist. Bullshit. That's what we're fighting. We're fighting the everlasting thing of stupidity.
Well, is it true that the Border Patrol down there with this insurgency that we have going on, they were the Border Patrol was not allowed to have their cell phones and take any kind of video or pictures? That was accurate.
Yes, absolutely. That was an order issued out to Border Patrol agents. Absolutely.
And where'd that order come from?
Came from Jay Johnson himself.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But some of them are still trying to do that.
Oh yeah, and some have. Some have, absolutely.
But you know, it's fallen off the headlines here. This whole incursion has fallen off the headlines here in the last couple of days, mostly because of ISIS in Iraq and the IRS thing, and then of course Hillary on her book tour.
Well, the mainstream media, they'll hit something one time and then boom, sweep it under. Let's go on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the problem. They don't stay with nothing. If there was something, before, if President Reagan had done something, they would have stayed with it forever. They would have hashed it until it was beat to death. Now, they might run a little bit of something about it. It's over. It's gone. So therefore, the American people sit there and think that it's all just hunky-dory. That was there. Now we got this scandal. Or we got Hillary on a book tour. Or we've got, whatever, the IRS scandal, which is a lot of left-wing people don't even think exists. They think it was dreamt up by the Republicans. Well, I can tell you firsthand that it's real. It's real. I know people who have been targeted by the IRS because of their political beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
God.
As far as this insurgency goes, Mike, do you see any relief, or is today going to, for the next 2 years, is it going to look exactly like today?
I can't honestly tell you that because I'm not in deep in with the decision making.
Mm-hmm.
If we had somebody in who could gather intelligence on this thing and give us a forecast, I don't believe it'll stop within the next 3-4 months.
Okay.
Unless they get a lot of pressure, and the American people are the pressure. People need to contact their Congress people and their senators every single day if they have to. Go jump up and down in front of their district offices when they're home on recess. Go pick it in front of their house. This is our country. They work for us. And if they don't do what they're supposed to do and follow the laws of this country, then by God, I'd set up a picket line in front of their house.
Well, the reason I ask is because
the
reason I ask is we got to be running out of places to put these people. If you are telling me that the number today is 73,000, and that's just in 2 months, I guess, and then the next 2 months we're at 150,000 or 200,000. I mean, is Fort Lewis and Fort Sam Houston and Dobbins Air Force Base, and are we just going to be just housing these people in all of these places? I mean, I would.
What they're going to do is they're going to get them in these places, and then they're going to get them out to their families. And in some instances, illegal aliens who are here are actually being given plane fare to go pick up their people.
Right.
And bus fare and whatever to go pick up this child. In a lot of instances, there's a lot of adults here too. It's not just kids. They're using the kids as the feel bad for me thing. There's a lot of adults, just as many adults as there is kids.
I agree, because I found a State Department document on this thing, on this DACA law, and it refers to obviously children, but children are up to 31 years old in this thing. I don't know.
There you go. And children need a guardian, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm coming across with my cousin here. She's 8 years old. And, this person's probably in their 20s or 30s or 40s, and they get through, too, because they're family. They don't want to separate them. I don't want to see families separated either. I don't. But the bottom line is they came here illegally. It's like we have no border. We have no border.
Well, the Middle East doesn't either. I mean,
so
I equate it with the Middle East. There is no border between Iraq and Syria either. So I mean that's just
no.
I see the same thing here.
Sure, absolutely, you bet.
So your forecast between now and the next 2 years, because Obama 3 weeks ago extended this DACA law for another 2 years. A lot of people don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a 4-year window.
And his order, by the way, is illegal as a day is long. Again, we got to wait for Congress. Congress has to get it, and then finally get somebody who to speak out more about it, and then get the masses. I would assure you right now, there's probably a few in Congress that don't know a whole lot about this that's going on. There are some that probably do not know the full gist of what's taking place. Then you have the ones who do. And Congress people don't talk amongst themselves like people might think they do. They don't. There are Congress people who have actually never met another congressperson, certain people.
Mm-hmm.
They'll tell you that. Well, I've never had the privilege to sit down and talk with him. I've never met him. Yet they sit in the same chamber. That's pathetic. If I was a congressman, I would make it one of my first rules would be to meet every other congressman at some point. Not just when they need my vote or my sponsorship or whatever. The other sad thing is most Congress people don't even read the bills that they pass. Don't even read them.
What can Arizona do locally that they're not doing to continue to sound the alarm here?
Good question. I mean, first of all, our governor can deploy the National Guard to our border, and she won't do it. Costs too much money. Goes right back to the money thing.
But they're already on the payroll.
I totally agree. But see, when you get a deployment operation, their pay goes up because you got to pay them full-time pay then, not just their monthly stipend for being in the Guard. You got to actually pay them a salary at that point. And she's not going to do it. She's not going to do it. She would rather be in bed with Common Core and the Medicaid expansion, who she twisted the arms of the state legislature to pass it. And she'd rather do stuff like that and stand up there and talk tough and all this other business instead of actually doing something. She has done nothing since she's been our governor. Absolutely nothing. But talk a good game.
Mm-hmm.
We have a DPS, very well-trained DPS. Nothing. We have a well-trained National Guard. Nothing. It's the same thing. It's just, it's not going to do nothing. It's not going to do nothing.
Do you have any kind of citizen militia on these borders?
We have quasi-militias, but again, this is not something that just anybody can do. You've got to have training, okay? There's a lot of militias with great intentions, but it's about training. You've got to be trained. If some of these militias have good leaders that have a military background or a law enforcement background that they can train their people and have discipline, I'm all for it. But there's a lot of groups that go out there that don't know the first thing about it, and somebody is going to get themselves killed.
And what kind of training? If you've got citizens militia, what would you need them to do?
They could actually go out and secure the border. Any citizen has a right to stop a felony in their presence, and that would go in with the smuggling. There's knowing how to spot a coyote. There's a coyote in every bunch. One of them's a coyote, possibly two.
Mm-hmm.
And it's knowing how to engage these people in conversation and discover who the coyote is. A lot of groups will go out, they'll spot them, and they'll report them to Border Patrol. Border Patrol will head them off if they can. A lot of times they can't because they're spread so thin that they can't get anybody there to pick them up. And now, in this day and age, the only thing you can do now is create a presence, hopefully to scare them to turn back. But that's going to be few and far between when they all get the message that, come on in, we'll give you asylum, and we'll see what your problem is, and we'll straighten you out for the meantime, and we'll give you a ticket and cut you loose out into society, and possibly go find some relatives in California or wherever and stay with them and then come to court. Well, they're not coming to court.
Well,
I really want to see the numbers on how many actually show up after this fiasco to court.
How can your court system handle this load?
They can't. They couldn't handle the load before. They couldn't handle the load when George Bush was president.
Mm-hmm.
Because ICE was doing their job. Okay? ICE was doing their job. We don't have our detention facilities. They're not big enough. They can't hold them all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they couldn't hold them before this incursion. They couldn't hold all the detainees then. That's why they're kicking some back across the border as soon as possible. And a lot of them just turn around and come right back. George Bush used to send them all. If you came in from Nogales, Sonora, or Acapulco Prieta or something like that, you came across from there, they'd put you on a deportation plane and take you to Mexico City and drop you off.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
I want to fly all these people. I want to fly all of them, all 73,000 of them. I want to fly them all into Dulles Airport. Not Washington National, but Dulles.
There you go.
Have all the planes show up within an hour of each other. Drop them all off. Call the White House and say, you've got some guests over here at gates 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And shut down Dulles. Shut it down. That's how I
tell Obama to tell the White House chef you're going to have several thousand for dinner tonight.
Exactly. I mean, as radical as I'm hearing this from you tonight, and I've already known all this. So this
it's not radical; it's the truth.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying
the
discussion that you and I have had for the sake of the listeners. But I'm here to tell you that I think the citizens at this point and the governors, if they believe in any kind of states' rights at all, ought to be a little. Let's go ahead and have a showdown and fly all these people into Dulles. Call the media up. Say you better be at gates, 2 through 12 at Dulles at noon because you have some arrivals, and let's have the showdown. Let's do this.
I totally agree. Thing is they're kicking the federal facilities in the other states, so the state authorities can't touch them. It's around federal property. That's part of the problem. Then you've got what they call sanctuary cities, who are setting up places for these people to come to. They're not going to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to do nothing. Tucson, Arizona is a sanctuary city. Pima County is a sanctuary county.
Well, you have actually no-go zones in your state. I mean,
what?
No-go zones where, there are signs up that says do not enter. Park.
Pretty close, yeah. There's a lot of places.
Federal parks. Don't come in here.
Well, but the thing is you got to understand the Mexican people settled this hundreds of years ago, and there's people of Mexican descent that live in Arizona, and you don't know if they're legal or not. One of the sure ways of finding out is they can't speak English. That's a good indicator. But there are a lot of good Mexican people who live in Arizona. They despise this as well. They do. They hate it because it makes them look bad with ignorant people. The Southwest is a Mexican heritage.
Mm-hmm.
We purchased this from Mexico. People think we stole it. We didn't. We bought it. And it's hard to decipher. We have Native Americans on the Tohono O'odham Reservation that cross back and forth across the border through the desert every day, and some of them have actually been picked up and detained and accused of being Mexican and sat in a detention center until they found out that they were actually American Indians.
Wow,
it happens. It's a mess. But see, in their culture, that's how it went for hundreds of years, back and forth. They got friends, they got family there, they've got friends, and they travel back and forth freely on the res, and they even have problems. It's just a mess. And nothing's being done to correct it. Now you seriously doubt anything is going to be done to correct it.
I don't either. I don't. As long as the two words asylum and refugee can be attached to this, it's not going to stop. I just don't see this stopping. I read this article today.
It's like the buses dropping them off in Tucson and Phoenix. They're under federal custody. The state can't go in there and put them on another bus and ship them on out. They're in federal custody. How are you going to do that?
Oh, okay. There's your distinction. Okay.
They're still in federal custody. Now, the ones who get loose and go off on the street, that's a different deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different deal. But then again, it's a manpower thing. You know how many agents and police it would take to deal with this?
No, I don't.
We don't have enough.
We don't have it.
Still be able to cover the rest of the crime that goes on.
Exactly. We don't have it. We don't have it.
No, we don't have it. And you can thank Obama for it. He created it. He didn't create it. He made it worse. And he made it worse thinking we can take in all this stuff. He doesn't care what people think. He does not care one iota what you or I or anybody else thinks.
Precisely.
He doesn't care. He does not care. He's the biggest liar to ever occupy our White House. It's that simple. And anybody who thinks he's not is really kidding themselves. Seriously.
Bordernarcotics.com. I invite all of the listeners to go over there.
They can find us on Facebook at Border Narcotics Intelligence.
Okay.
We're all over social media.
Well, I mean, we're going to help. All we can do out here, over here on the East Coast, is try and help and spread this message. I don't know what else to do.
Our social media is the best place because we don't even have time to update our website. We don't.
Mm-hmm.
We do not. We just don't have time. Don't have time. We're spread that thin.
Wow. Mike Presnell, you have been fabulous to get all of this out tonight. You've given us 2 hours of unvarnished
That's what we do.
truth.
We provide information. Accurate information. Bad information does nobody any good.
True enough.
Does nobody any good. And if the American people knew exactly everything that was taking place in Washington, D.C. with their money,
well, we just threw a bunch of money at it. We just threw a bunch more money at it today or this week. So, I mean, I don't know where that's going to go, but, you know, it's just, I got to thank you for your time.
I see a tax increase on the horizon.
I do, too. What else are you going to do?
And Republicans are going to support it because we've got all these bills. This is what we need to do. But yet they won't point a finger down the White House and say this is what created it. Look how much of your paycheck and my paycheck goes towards paying taxes.
Darling, I don't have a paycheck. I'm all volunteer over here. That's the stupidity in it.
Well, we volunteer as well. We don't even take donations. This comes out of our pocket. If I need a pair of binoculars, that comes out of my pocket. If I need a recording device, it comes out of mine. Our radio system, when we first started, pooled our money together to buy an elaborate communication system, came out of our pocket. We have never accepted a donation other than one time from a lady who gave us a check for $100 for our canines. We have drug canines and tracking canines.
Good.
We are very well organized. And we have since taken to looking into corrupt politicians. When you have investigative experience, you look at whatever. And we wanted to get to the core of the problem, see what's going on. Who are these people? Why are they saying this? And why are they doing this? It's all a big game. That's all it is. The American people are being hoodwinked on a daily basis from their politicians.
Well said.
I can't elaborate any more on that. It's a fact of life. And it sucks.
I have to thank you for your time tonight, sir.
You're welcome.
Certainly for all the work you're doing and the other 47 partners that are doing it with you. We'll just keep spreading this word and just start sounding the alarms. In the meantime, please go to his Facebook page, Border Narcotics Intelligence, bordernarcotics.com. Here's a handshake to you, Mike, and thanks so much for your time.
You bet. Thank you.
We'll stay in touch. All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there's your unvarnished truth, the southern border. Pretty terrifying, but it's clearly something that has to be discussed. It's fallen off the headlines. I appreciate you being with us tonight, and we'll see you next week. We're never at a lack of something to talk about. God bless America, and stay safe.
All eyes are watching to see what you'll do. Who'll take the chance and make the first move? hearts are sound.